Baseball history. Been gone since I would say since Saturday, and I had to go out and do a little history in the streets. So that's where I've been, and uh, hey, I'm back, and just gonna pick up right where I left off. So generally, what I do is wait for a few people to join, and then I jump right in there. So I usually give about a minute, and of course, you know the drill. If you enjoy this type of history, I know baseball season is here now. So if you enjoy this kind of history, by all means, go ahead and subscribe and keep coming back for more. And also, if you really like this kind of history and you have some friends who are baseball fans, go ahead and share the broadcast, right? So I'm here tonight sporting my Leland Giants uniform because I'm also promoting my book that was released in 2023. And this book won the Best of Illinois History Awards. It's a good book. It's about the 1910 Chicago Leland Giants. If you notice, I'm wearing a Leland Giants hat tonight. When I was away in the last few days, I'll tell you about that in a moment. I had a custom made Leland Giants hat to match this jersey. And of course, I used to go down to the Lids. Maybe Lids should be a sponsor, right? Because I'm always going down to Lids and having them custom make some kind of hat. And so I wanted to have a Leland Giants hat that really represents this. And because I have this book on the 1910 season, which was their greatest season. You can make a good argument for 1905, but certainly 1910 was one of the greatest teams ever assembled. And I would say right behind the 1905 Philadelphia Giants, who were awfully good team. And I'm finishing up an update, a revised edition on that book as well. So anyway, hey, welcome back everybody. And well, where have I been? Okay, so I left here early Saturday morning, headed out to Los Angeles. And of course, I've been talking about the Los Angeles White Sox for, wow, all winter long. So I wanted to go to their field. So I went out to Los Angeles and took a little vacation out there and did a tour of the Paramount Theater. And then from there, I went to the Hollywood Forever Cemetery and walked the grounds where Garland is buried and Mickey Rooney and Mel Blanc. Remember, Mel Blanc used to do the voices for Daffy Duck and no, he wasn't Daffy Duck. He was Daffy Duck. I don't want to get him mixed up with Donald Duck, but Daffy Duck, yeah, and Bugs Bunny and a whole bunch of other voices too. So he was buried there. Fabulous cemetery. So it was right behind the Paramount Theater, and so I went there and also went to the Academy Award Museum there and left there and then headed down to Las Vegas. And I was able to do a little research when I was there. I have to tell you this. Before I left California, I went down to the old White Sox Park, which was in the Boyle Heights district, which is now as pretty much is Compton. So actually, believe it or not, I did that interview without a hat. Typically, I always wear a hat, but I'm always wearing a red hat. And so these days, I was advised to be extra careful with your colors down in that part of the neighborhood. So I went down behind Jefferson High School and just wanted to show you what it looks like now. And if you have my book, The Negro Baseball Leagues of Photographic History, if you ever look in that book, I have angles from every aspect of that park. And so that is one park where black teams played that you can see all of the angles. And I was able to put those together from photographs from what Wilbur Bullet Rogan had in his collection. And so you can see White Sox Park as it existed then. Also, I have some panoramics. I have two panoramics. I have one from the 1921 season, never released it. And then I have one from the 1927 season, and you can see Jefferson High School in the background. And of course, Jefferson High School was destroyed with an earthquake. So it had a lot of damage. They ended up tearing it down. So there's a new Jefferson High School there. So anyways, down in Compton, and I was happy to go down in Compton and actually just visit that sacred ground, right? So yeah, so thank you guys for joining. And I see we got a few people joining. Someone says, nice, that's a nice uniform. Well, I tell you what, this is an Evansville flannel uniform. And of course the hat is one that I had custom made at Lid. So you guys ready for some baseball history? And once again, you like baseball, this is a good place to be. So I'm going to take you back to March 25th, 1903. And in that particular date, the Myron, Indiana Hot Rags. Okay, and you know, rag music was all the rage during that time. So it was Scott Joplin. Matter of fact, Scott Joplin's from Sedalia, Missouri, the same place that Bill Drake came from. John Donaldson went to school there. George Smith College is a black college there. George Smith College, and John Donaldson went there for a while. So that's down in Sedalia, Missouri. But the ragtime music had spread all over the country, and with Scott Joplin and a few other people too. So they named their team the Indiana Hot Rags, Myron, Indiana Hot Rags. And they were organized on this day. And all of the officials who put the team together were also players. So they had people like Leighton Garth, Omar Hill, Fred Johnson, Bertie Burton, that was another one, George Sizemore, John well, I guess it would have been Howell. And then Wayman Prim, William Jackson, Charles Webb, William Webb, Robert Julius. Then they had William Julius, so they had two brothers, William Julius, Eddie Walker, Bert Pettiford. And if you look at these names, what you'll know instantly is that these are the original members of the Indianapolis ABC. So what you're seeing in 1903 being organized in Myron, Indiana, ends up being the original Indianapolis ABCs. That's why it's important. All right. Somebody said it was only 16 teams at that time. Not sure what you said. What have you been doing today? Okay. Well, today I just traveled back and just hopped right on this broadcast so I can talk to you guys. All right, because I've been away for a while. So if you like this kind of content, remember I'm going for my Hank Aaron number, which is 755 in subscribers, and so I'm going to pick up where I left off because that's why I was pushing for it. I didn't even check to see how many subscribers I have today. Can somebody look and tell me there? It looks like I have 720, so I'm going for 755. I like to hit that total before the end of the month, and that's my Hank Aaron total, right? And then after then, we're going to go for the Barry Bonds total, and then to the Sahara O total, and we're just going to keep it growing, all right? So let me go back, and that's the baseball fact, the beginning of the Indianapolis ABCs, all right? Okay, and I'm going to go back to March 25th, 1910. On this date, John William Crutchfield, a.k.a. Jimmy Crutchfield, was born in Ardmore, Missouri. I don't know if you know where Ardmore is, down there close to Columbia, Missouri, around near Moberly, Missouri, all right? And he played outfield for the Black Barons, Pittsburgh Crawfords, Chicago American Giants, and I had the pleasure of visiting him on many occasions at his house in Chicago on Cottage Grove in the 1980s. And we had lots of talks about Missouri, growing up in Missouri, because I spent part of my youth in Missouri growing up, not in a small town, I was in Kansas City, but he spent most of his time growing up in Moberly, Missouri. And if you ever get down to Moberly, Missouri, they have at the local historical society some great pictures, photographs, I might say, of him, and then also Leroy Matlock, who was from Moberly also, who went on to do great things in the Negro Leagues. I think he passed away in Minneapolis, Minnesota. But yeah, those are two Missouri-born players. And I learned a lot about, I'm trying to think of his name. He was the only left-hander that pitched for the Kansas City Monarchs in 1924. And he was from a little town close to Moberly. And Jimmy Crutchfield knew him and had heard things about him, even saw him pitch. And so I was able to learn a lot about that guy as well. There was only one left-hander, Homer Hop Bartley. And the only left-hander the Kansas City Monarchs had in 1924, the year they won the World Series. All right, so let's go to another guy interviewed, also born on this day, but he was born in 1912. So you have Crutchfield born in 1910. Now you have Lester Lockett. And I did appearances with Lester Lockett. And he was born in Princeton, Indiana. So we got some nice Indiana references going on here tonight. And he played for many teams, including the St. Louis Stars and the Birmingham Black Barons. And how many people remember Lester Lockett? I have his signature around here somewhere. I have a program from the night that we appeared together in Minneapolis, believe it or not. And Double Duty Ratcliffe was there with us. So that program is signed by Double Duty and Lester Lockett, who appeared with me that night talking about baseball, right? So, yeah, so I knew Lester Lockett. He passed away now, and so has Jimmy Crutchfield. And they're now amongst the ancestors. But these are people I had the pleasure of knowing and sit down and had lots of conversation with them, especially Mr. Crutchfield at his house, right? And Crutchfield was pretty instrumental when I was doing my book, The Photographic History, which is the same place where you'll find those Bullet Rogan photographs. Yeah. So, hey, and if you're joining, by the way, let me know where you're joining from. That's always cool right there. And I would love that. So, all right. And if somebody asked a question here, it was only what 16 teams at that time. Oh, I see what you're saying. I don't know if you're talking about the major leagues. American and National League, they had 16 teams. So I'm not sure exactly which particular league you're asking. So you can specify that if you're still here. Go ahead and specify that. All right. So I'm going to go and give you one more person that was born in 1954, and I interviewed him as well. His name was Nate Peoples, and he was an Atlanta slugger and former Negro Leaguers. And this guy, he smashed 2 home runs in his team, the Atlanta Crackers, 20-9 loss to the Tulsa Oilers in Douglas, Georgia. And I'm not sure, there's a Douglasville, Georgia, and I don't know if I know there's a Douglasville. I don't know if there's a Douglas, Georgia. I want to look that one up. You know, sometime I'm doing this research, and when I start talking about it, I start thinking about questions. So anyway, you have Nate Peoples, and these guys are breaking the color barriers. And I did interview Nate Peoples as well. So it's kind of interesting. I got 3 guys I interviewed tonight. Actually, it's going to be a 4th one because I'm going to jump right to March 26, 1949. And you ever heard of the Biltmore Hotel? And that's kind of interesting because I just left Los Angeles. I would have liked to have gone to to the where the Biltmore Hotel was, and then also I wanted to go to where the Olympic Auditorium was, which is now the Korean church. So I didn't get a chance to go there on this trip, but I have passed the Olympic Auditorium on many occasions when I go there. I've never taken a photograph of it, but I need to do that. So anyway, the Swank Biltmore, BILT Hotel finally removed its segregation restrictions and will now allow the 5 members of the Cleveland Indians, the 5 black members of the Cleveland Indians, that would be Larry Doby, and this is 1949, so Larry Doby, Satchel Paige, Orestes Minoso, Artie Wilson, and Roy Wellmaker, to stay at the hotel. And that was something they could not do in 1948. But instead of heading to that hotel, those guys said, "Hell no with you, man. We're not playing. We don't play that mess." So instead of heading to that hotel, the Pittsburgh Courier mentioned in the article that a reporter there asked Satchel Paige for an interview, and he said, "Let Larry Doby answer all the questions." So this reporter went over to Larry Doby, and so they said, first of all, Larry Doby said, "Hey, we're all heading over to the Watkins Hotel, a black hotel, all right?" And he said, "We're staying at the Watkins Hotel." He said, "Yes, I know we can stay at the Biltmore if we want to, but they didn't want us last year. Maybe it's okay now because I have made good. But Mr. Watkins was nice to me last year at his hotel, and I'm going to stay there." So they rather would stay at the black hotel than go downtown and stay at the swanky Biltmore Hotel, right? And then the regular season, let's see, didn't do anything there. Okay. And during the regular season, a lot of people don't know this. During the regular season, when Larry Doby joined the team, he stayed with the team at every hotel except one place. Somebody said, "Where do you live?" Okay, I'm in Kansas City. And what's interesting is he stayed at every hotel with the team except in one city. And that one city was St. Louis. St. Louis Browns, they would come there and play the St. Louis Browns in the American League. And the segregation was so tough in Missouri and that he could not stay with the team. And segregation in some of these places have really destroyed the fabric of these cities. And people want to say, a lot of things. Some people will say integration destroyed them, but I can tell you this: racism and segregation destroyed a lot of good American towns because it should have never been practiced. So, uh, but we're having to look at these things again, and that's pretty sad. And I remember during this interview here, Bill Veck said that uh, by letting the black players stay at the Biltmore Hotel, that it was a proof that America was changing for the positive. And boy, I'm telling you, where are we now? That's a powerful question. Where are we now? How about this question? Is there any team right now, starting with 5 black players um, on the starting lineup this year? Is there any? I don't believe there is. And I remember a few years back when the Minnesota Twins only had 1 black player in their minor league organization. We're talking about in the 80s, guys. And so I've seen a lot of things change and I've seen a lot of things just stay the same. And it's always a struggle to bring, what do we want to say, to bring equality to athletics. And part of it comes down to where the team is located, the team ownership. If you can probably remember Marge Schott. I remember Marge Schott. I knew the lady who actually blew the whistle on Marge Schott. Talked to her on many occasions, especially around that time that happened. So it is really interesting. But guys, this is the kind of thing that I like to talk about, and it doesn't get talked about often enough. But if we know this history, guys, maybe we can stop it from reoccurring again, and we can do something better to make this country a better place, right? Because it took a lot of people, it took a lot of sacrifice for us to have the freedoms that we have. And so we can never forget that. So that is kind of my testimony for this evening. I will tell you this: when I went to the White Sox old stadium, and I put up a live. I was trying to make it a video on because if you go to my page, if you don't page into the lives or the shorts, you won't find it. But anyway, it ended up being a short, and I put that on probably about I'm going to say maybe about an hour ago. I've got it here. And I put it on about an hour ago. Believe it or not, over 1,800 people have seen that already. So it's just really, it took off like none of the shorts that I typically have, which maybe, get 6, 7, 800 people. This guy had 1,800 people. And it's about maybe 2 minutes and 50 seconds long. So if you want to drop over to my shorts, so you have to, after I end this broadcast, go over to the shorts and see that one because I actually am at the location in the Boyle Heights area down in Compton, California, man. You ever been to Compton, California? Compton gets a lot of rap, negative rap because yeah, you hear about Compton as being a tough place, but I didn't find it so tough. And then when I was there, I just see a lot of people working and living their ordinary life, people shopping, doing the things you do in every community. But, I was there in the daytime and I understand that in any city it can be tough. And, I live in Kansas City, and between Kansas City and St. Louis, they have more murders in those places than the rest of the state. So I understand that, and hopefully you do too. But there's a lot of history in these urban cores, and whether it's Boyle Heights or maybe if you come to Kansas City, there's a lot of history around Quindaro, and Quindaro gets a negative name. There's a lot of history around 18th and Vine. 18th and Vine gets a negative name. But guys, just know that people are living their best life in those places. And so do a little research before you go to some of these places. And if you really like to do history like I do, I like to go on location, guys. So if the park was somewhere that was in a tough neighborhood, I might still go there. As a matter of fact, I have gone there many occasions. And so that's the reason why my history is different than someone who's sitting back in their home somewhere in the suburbs, never goes out and interviews anybody. They don't go visit the families. They don't spend their money to go visit people, and they don't make trips. But that's what makes me kind of unique. And I always tell people, I don't have a job, I have a passion. And because of that, I'm still here today. So now I'm going to get ready to close off because I was traveling. I woke up this morning, man. I was in Las Vegas. Hey, I was even doing some research on a team called the Las Vegas Giants, and around 1929. I probably will talk about that tomorrow. Uh, but today I want to mention, the Los Angeles White Sox and visiting that field. So, yeah, so I want to thank everybody who's been joining me and been supporting me and who keeps coming back. And I'm glad to be back. I don't know if anybody missed me or not. I didn't get anything say, hey, what happened to Phil Dixon? But I had been coming on consecutively every night, probably for 6, 7 months, and so I'm going to go right back to that. And but occasionally I'll have to go out and speak. I may take a trip, and it takes me a couple of days, and I don't always promote that I'm not going to be at home. And so, but and then of course, every once in a while I'm just going to miss a day. Doing these lives and trying to come with fresh new information every night is a challenge. But guys, after 46 years, I'm always able to think of something that occurred with some of these players I interviewed or some of these places I've been, these cities I've traveled to, and I'm just excited to talk about that. So I guess in wrapping up tonight's broadcast, hey, I got a chance to talk about my new hat here, and I don't know, that's a great combination. But the lids people always take care of me. I go down and I tell them what I want, and they go to work, and it doesn't make a difference where you go. But and then also, I'm not the kind of person who likes to flat bill, so they go and they bend my bill for me, and they do a great job. So I don't know if you're a big lids person, but you want to get a custom made hat, definitely go to Lids. See, so Lids, are you hearing me? I'm actually doing a commercial for you, right? So anyway, God, I just want to tell you, it's great to be back and talking baseball. Now I'm going to start looking at the major league teams. Hey, I actually need to maybe pick up a press pass and start going out to cover some of the Royals games and then coming back and talking about them. They need some help. I'm telling you. When I went to uh, where was I? I was in Las Vegas, so I was looking, and man, they had tons of New York hats. They might have 7, 8 different kind. A lot of California Angels hats. Different teams all over the American and National League. And when you go into the Kansas City Royals, they have one hat, one style. So the Royals need help. So I might have to help those guys out a little bit and go out and talk to them and maybe do some interviews with some of the players and see what I can do to bring a little attention, and maybe they'll have a great season too. So anyway, guys, are you happy that the baseball season is back? Hey, feel free to hit a little stars if you are. And guys, if I'm going for it would be the Hank Aaron number, 755. Now remember, I passed 714 was subscribers. That was my Babe Ruth number. Now I'm going for the Hank Aaron 755 number. And then after that, I'm going to go for the Barry Bonds number. But it's not that much difference between the Barry Bonds number and the Hank Aaron's number. However, I'm going for the Sahara O home run number of subscribers. And I have to make a good leap. But guys, if you help me get there, I'll get there. And hopefully, I'll feel free Palestine. I understand, guys. I try not to get too political. Of course, I have lots of feelings because I think that everyone is entitled to live their best life. I really do believe that. And unfortunately, it's hard to do that in some places. So I understand. So anyway, guys, I understand you're passionate about things, and I certainly respect that. And so come back, and we will be giving these broadcasts over and over again. And I just want to tell you, I love you guys, and I enjoy talking to you. And so see you real soon. And this has been my July, it's not July, it's March 25th, 2026 edition of This Day in Black Baseball History. I'll be glad when I get to July, because that will be, or I think, around my first year of doing these lives. And guys, I've done over 400. So just imagine the information and history that I've dropped. But if you want to see something special, be sure to go over and look at that chart that I just laid down tonight about visiting the old White Sox Park. All right, guys, thank you. And come on back. And next time that you pick me up, let me know where you're joining from. right? Because you'll be surprised where I've been. It's incredible. In 46 years, I've been a lot of places, right? So, all right then, guys. Thank you, and you have a nice evening. And this is Phil Dixon with another edition of This Day in Black Baseball History.